inaugurates federal and state government landmark projects in Kano State.
We have done very well in infrastructure. The amount of developments on the ground, they are fantastic. We thank God.
Vice President Oshibajo calls for faithful implementation of cashless policy to tackle illicit election financing.
And federal government to deploy point-of-sales agents. The National Social Safety Net Program scale up.
And Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss threats to railway services in Nigeria.
All right, it all started with great excitement and jubilation when President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated and flagged off the Abuja-Kaduna train services, and that was some few years ago, precisely July 2016.
The flag off, no doubt, rekindled the hopes of many Nigerians with respect to the resuscitation of a rail system which in the past had conveyed agricultural produce, livestock and solid mineral resources to various seaports in the country for export to other parts of the world in the good old days. And that was in addition to providing an alternative and some would say better means of transportation to convey humans, goods and services from one part of the country to another.
And shortly after that, that's the flag off of Kaduna Abuja train corridor, other routes such as Lagos, Ibadan, and of course the Ajaokuta Itape Warri were also open for commercial activities, while new rail tracks are also being laid in other parts of Nigeria and elsewhere.
Well, the hope of Nigerians, as it were, is being challenged following a number of incidents on the rail services. Terrorist attack, for instance, on the Abuja-Kaduna train service on the 28th of March 2022 led to the abduction of a number of passengers and, of course, the death of about 8 of them, plus the subsequent suspension of the train services for at least 8 months.
Now, 4 weeks after resumption of service, gunmen attacked the Gwebe train station in Edo State, abducting a number of passengers waiting to board the train.
Well, as Nigerians were trying to put the incident behind them, the Itape Warri-bound train service also was impacted, and this followed a derailment. And just a couple of days later, another incident of derailment occurred, but this time on the Abuja-Kaduna route.
These developments have impacted negatively, so to speak, on the train services in the country, affecting, of course, most importantly, revenue accruable to that sector. But generally, the security and safety of train passengers, thereby challenging, I should say, the confidence of the people on the train service. Because I recall, I had my first ever train ride on the Abuja-Kaduna bound train when it was newly inaugurated. And I think the feeling is still there. A lot of people still find, the train services much more comfortable, cheaper and safer.
No question about that. It's all around the world. Train services are usually a priority in terms of haulage of goods and, of course, for mass transit, whether it is intercity or usually metro service. But the good news that we're having is that the train service on the Abuja-Kaduna route is resuming today, as the federal government is said to be determined to ensure that Nigerians enjoy uninterrupted services on that axis, keeping, of course, with the vision of a desire to make change in terms of transportation ease through the development and, of course, provision of expanded railway services.
So as the train services resume, quite a number of questions will be on the minds of train passengers. One of them, safety. Safety will be paramount, and of course other things that could be discuss will be the factors responsible for the derailment of the train in various in those routes affected. Could it be attributed to whatever sabotage, as some people are insinuating, or well, could it be human error? What measures can be taken to prevent it? Of course, Kingsley, given the fact that we're not used to train derailment in Nigeria, really, I haven't heard of any train derailment here in this country.
Well, that's well, the train derailment can happen anywhere around the world, anywhere around the world, and the more train services you have, the more, of course, you're also likely to experience some of these incidents from time to time. Fairly common in Pakistan and India, I mean, one would say.
And the US.
Yes, and occasionally the US. So what are the issues, what are the factors that, as you pointed out, could it be human error? Could it be sabotage of the rail tracks? Because if you saw what happened along the Takbe-Warri rail service, it appeared that the track was cut off at some point. And you need a continuous flow of track for the services to go on. And no train can stop automatically.
Of course not. So even the speed again.
The speed, and it takes a while for a train to come to a halt, even once it perceives some obstacle or danger ahead. But those are some of the issues we shall be talking about as the government is seeking to revitalize train services. What are the threats present and, of course, in the future that should be taken account of? So that's the point on which we'd like to welcome you to this edition of the flagship program on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service once again from our Abuja headquarters studios.
I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. Thank you also for joining us as I join Kingsley to welcome you. Highlights of the morning news will be coming up shortly and with Frama Pani. And don't also forget that we'll be having business news. You may want to sit by to get some business tips for your morning pleasure. And much later, Chukwudi Okodigbaja will be joining us for a review of today's highlights of the newspapers. So, Frama, I'm sure you must have had a jolly good ride on one of the train services, have you?
Unfortunately, I haven't, but I look forward to it.
I'm sorry about that.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. State-of-the-art legacy projects executed by federal government in the areas of power supply, transportation, as well information and communications technology have been inaugurated in Kano to enhance the nation's socio-economic development. President Muhammadu Buhari performed the ceremony during a one-day official visit to the Center of Commerce.
Very much for your foresight and for the infrastructure you are putting to make not only medical tourism but other tourism are necessary.
Similarly, three-layered ultra-modern flyover and interchange executed by the Ganduje administration to, amongst other, enhance the beauty of Kano City has been formally declared open for use by motorist public. The critical infrastructure named after President Muhammadu Buhari is one of the several other state government projects inaugurated by the Nigerian leader during his official visits to Kano.
They are fantastic. We thank God.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says effective and operation of cashless policy in Nigeria can help tackle illicit election financing. And Vice President Osinbajo, who stated this, equally encourages provision of more infrastructure useful for financial inclusion. 100 youths selected from the 27 local government areas of Borno State are undergoing a 5-day training in skills empowerment program courtesy of the federal government. The training, organized by the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, in collaboration with the Borno State government, is targeting skills, modernization and equipping of the youth in the area of vulcanization. 500 units of modern smokeless stoves were also distributed to vulnerable women to combat climate change.
In order to restore the infrastructural facilities that is damaged in this state and to build new ones for progress, it is necessary to do what Mr. President has done.
Now, federal government will deploy point-of-sale agents for cash transfers during the National Social Safety Net program. Scale-up Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said this while hosting the Executive Director, Angola, Nigeria, South Africa constituency of the World Bank Group, Ms. Ayonda Lodlo in Abuja. The program will cost $800 million and is to take off in 2023. The National Social Safety Net Program Scale-Up is to be implemented by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development.
Working on having all of the database that is required. So there's the rapid response register that has been set up and is being expanded. There's also a pipeline of agents network that are being put in place, working with the banking system and other financial services, so that on the approval of the National Assembly, we'll be able to quickly start deploying the funds that will be disbursed by the bank.
Department of State Services has intercepted some members of an organized syndicate involved in the sales of newly redesigned Naira notes. A statement by the spokesperson of the DSS, Dr. Peter Afunaya, indicates that the DSS operatives in course of its operations in some parts of the country established that some commercial bank officials are aiding the economic malfeasance. Consequently, the service wants currency racketeers to desist from the ignoble act while urging appropriate regulatory authorities to set up monitoring and supervisory activities to address the emerging trends. DSS command and formations have also been directed to ensure that all persons and groups engaging in the illegal sales of new notes are arrested and prosecuted. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break.
All right, welcome back. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service. Time to talk business, and tax experts are saying active investment in real estate will contribute significantly to the growth of gross domestic product. Kunde Adeye has the details.
With housing deficit in Nigeria, tax experts are calling for more investments in the real estate sector. They say major investments and enabling business reforms in the sector can help governments increase its revenue from the sector through land-based taxes, improved tax revenue, and widen the tax net. A tax expert, Dr. Kennedy Iwondo, said real estate is one of the industries with the highest global recognition.
If those that are into real estate will understand real estate taxation, government will generate a lot of revenue, and it will also help them do better in their business. Like today, we're giving them exposures of so many taxes they are going to encounter during their real estate transaction. So ignorance of law is not an excuse, but it's not good for one to have ignorance. It's good for you to let people know what they're supposed to do so they can do it very well. If you're a Nigerian and you're working and making the money, you need to pay your tax. That's the only contribution you have for the country. The only contribution any individual have for his country is to pay tax.
And to the details of Monday's tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
All right, many thanks for the business package. Up next for us now is newspaper review.
Let's welcome our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okule Ubaja, right in the studio. Chukwudi, good morning.
Hello, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning, Chukwudi, and nice to see you this morning.
Same here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's begin by taking a look at the front page of Daily Sun newspaper. There's an earpiece beside the name flag. It says, new notes. Amid CBN 11 days grace, cash shortage worsens. Banks, ATMs dispense limited new notes. DSS busts syndicates selling new Naira notes. Suspects name bank officials. Details on pages 5 and 25. INEC must address vote buying and underage voting to gain trust. That's on page 26. NLC mass protests loom over fuel and Naira scarcity. Labour mobilizes, schools shut as groups express anger, and petrol prices rise above post-subsidy benchmark of 410 Naira per litre. Terror alert, security agencies foiled 10 threats on FCT, that's according to the minister. And federal government supports US visa ban on democracy saboteurs, says Buhari will go on May 29th. PDP candidate taunts APC counterpart, tells him what Aso Rock isn't. You get the details there. Buhari commissions NSIA 10 megawatt solar power project. My administration has done well, says President. Atiku will grant Nnamdi Kanu unconditional release if elected president. That's according to the campaign council. And lastly, at the foot of the front page there, Nigeria at high risk of increased Lassa fever transmission. That's attributed to the NCDC. Claire.
Yes, and let's take a look at Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera is also leading with fuel crisis. It says long queues nationwide. Scarcity persists. Comes with two riders. Pump price hits 700 Naira per litre. Pump price hits 700 Naira per litre. Situation taking toll on economic activities. And protesters to begin sit at home in Edo. Protesters to begin sit at home in Edo. Naira redesign, over 17 million diaspora Nigerians can't exchange old notes. You can read up details of that on page 5. New notes, of course, bank customers load CBN on deadline extension is on page 15. And Diziani approaches court to recover seized assets, page 14. Now, we are on top of security situation in the FCT. Minister, that is the FCT minister, and on the other side of the paper, federal government backs US visa ban on election riggers. This is that on page 5. Resident doctors shelved strike in public interest. President, page 4. You can read that up on page 4. And of course, the project inauguration in Kanu yesterday is stopping just a bit under the nameplate of Al Jazeera. Buhari inaugurates Dala Inland Dry Port and 10 megawatts of solar power energy. That's on page 14. I think that's the outlook of this paper, the Al Jazeera, this Tuesday morning. Chukwudi Okule Ubaja, this is your pick.
I think we should praise some news editors for their untiring effort, at reporting the fuel crisis. Otherwise, it's become such a monotonous subject, even though in terms of the toll it's taking on us, it's really shaking the earth, and that's not good for any of us.
You can say that again.
Long queues reported, at filling stations. They are saying that in Lagos, for instance, the major oil marketers, if you're lucky to squeeze in there and get to the pump, get to the pump, 350, 400. But of course, that is the major marketers. They are saying this is up from 175 about 2 months ago. If you go to the pumps that are supplied by the independent marketers, the story is a different thing. About that one, about 700 naira being the pump price. It's a bulldozer, you know, a piece of information to listen to. I don't know how anyone could possibly buy fuel for 700 naira per liter and hope to make any gain. If there are people who work in the bureaucracy, you begin to ask yourself whether within 1.5 weeks they're not going to fritter away all the money, all their salary, you know, on fuel. I think something needs to be done about this fuel matter.
You know, a sister who came in, you know, for the break from outside the country, as we drove around Abuja, and, you know, she saw the jerry cans, you know, the black marketers, you know, just selling right opposite fuel stations. You know, she asked, how come you have these people selling in jerry cans and the fuel stations don't have fuel?
No, that one defies any logic.
You know, I just laughed.
It is a stupid site.
I didn't have an answer.
And maybe it labels impunity because those people are not manufacturing fuel in their households. They're getting them from people who are supposed to sell to us.
From the petrol attendants. In fact, some of those people are owned by petrol attendants. They are owned by those who, you know, who sell fuel at the fuel stations. So you see, we are doing ourselves.
Oh, sure. The suburb I live in, there are these two filling stations that never ever run out of fuel. And they sell for 380, 370. Then the ones that are supposed to sell to us at the control price, you don't see a drop there.
And there are ones and there are fuel stations that never sell when petrol is, when there's no scarcity.
Who checks them?
They never sell. They don't have. But when there is scarcity,
that's when they thrive. That's when the trade thrives.
I think
they thrive on scarcity.
I've referenced that on Good Morning Nigeria in the past. There are 2 petrol stations on the Shagamu Ijebode road. Let's say Shagamu highway. 2 filling stations, the same name that they have. One is on the right if you're going towards Ore, and the other is on the left if you're coming from Ore towards Shagamu. Never would you see them dispensing fuel. Never. Each time I drive past those stations, but usually when there is scarcity, I understand the open. One of them, I'm sure those who are familiar with that route will know it. One of them, if you're on the road on the way to Ore, is just before a bridge, and you have to be careful on that bridge because there is a bump. And a number of accidents used to occur on that bridge. So once I see the sign of the filling station, I know that I'm close to that bridge. So you decelerate and then you proceed. But much more seriously, there were protests in Benin yesterday because residents were saying, look, fuel is not available, and even where it's available, it's selling 500, 600 naira a liter. Just what is happening? What is happening in Abuja on Sunday? I should say this. I bought fuel without much stress. Obviously, they just started selling. It was in my Maitama area, so they just started selling. I bought fuel, but there are queues, you know, in some other locations. Not so disorderly. If you are in the city area, of course, fuel is 195 naira a liter. I'm asking what is happening. Economists cannot now probably explain what is happening because we hear demand and supply. That's what will give you a price function. So demand and supply.
Not in this case.
When supply is in short, when supply is inadequate, then so what are our sources of supply? You will hear stories, explanations that we have adequacy, 32 billion. I don't know how many liters they normally will quote. That are available, no need to panic, and so on and so forth. The marketers are doing their own.
The ones sheltered at sea.
At sea, that's what I'm saying. That the ones that are even waiting to birth. So, what is happening? what is happening? Then look at the supply end. Last year, about this time, there were high hopes that the refineries already ready to undergo maintenance will be ready by the close of last year. But then they extended again to sometime this year. What is the state of repairs of those refineries? Oh, Dangote refinery will provide the answer.
The buffer.
Where has Dangote refinery been completed? Is Dangote refinery now still operational? And by the way, let me just throw this in, because President Buhari went to commission the Lekki Deep Sea Port, and the first mega ship, of course, berthed at the wharf there in Lekki Deep Sea Port. After that, what has happened? And I raised the question about evacuating the cargoes,
yes,
from those ships. So
you were asking which route?
Which route? How were the cargoes from that ship evacuated? That's another matter. But this fuel thing, so that we were told, if you recall, that PIA is a game changer for the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
That is the Petroleum Industry Act. Decentralization and so on and so forth. NNPCL created, a commission created for the upstream sector, downstream and midstream. Midstream and downstream authority appears to have no clue. Because if you recall, near the end of last year, it took the DSS to summon marketers and others.
48 hours deadline
48 hours.
That seemed to have worked.
And then after a while, everybody relaxed. So what is happening? And the economy is taking a big hit.
You know, some of my colleagues, made a joke out of what is happening. Said, which of the queues would you want to, to tag along? Is it the queue for PVC, or is it the queue for new Naira notes, or is it the queue for fuel? So we have long queues, both for fuel, for PVC, and for old notes. But Al Jazeera Market Survey is giving some explanation. He says that the paper says that, of course, notes that Major Oil Marketers Association was selling products at around 190 naira per litre. That is where you find them, because most of them are not dispensing. Stations belonging to members of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, that's IPMAN, jacked up prices to between 400 and 450 per litre. Now, the National Controller Operations, IPMAN, Mike Osatuyi, said the price was unlikely to hit 500 naira per litre. According to him, his members now buy products at 280 naira per litre at depot.
Is this a taste of what to come once there's full deregulation?
See?
That prices just go haywire and people fix prices arbitrarily. Some people can then choose to also hold the products in order to cause a spike in the prices. So these are pointers to what is likely, what might happen, and if that is so, what are the measures that we need to put in place to ensure that total deregulation doesn't amount to a breakdown of law and order.
Well, I don't know whether economic indices can be quoted in our situation, but if they can at all, when total deregulation happens and the prices expectedly go haywire because it's a do as you like situation, I hope that an organism will naturally preserve itself at the end of the day, because when you price yourself out of your market, you lose customers, definitely. So even in our situation, the GSM telephony thing is a bit instructive. One of the operators, if you had a drop call after 2 seconds, you still paid for 1 minute. But one other operator stabilized it for us, and everybody had to tag along, otherwise they will lose customers.
Well,
so my hope is that the runaway situation Kingsley just intoned is not going to be the case, because that would amount to putting a noose around our neck and taking a jump from that tree.
Let's hope they explain what is happening away with, as you said,
the
whole market.
But the truth is, where businesses are in a position and believe that they can make obscene profits
with impunity,
they will proceed to make those obscene profits.
They surely will try.
Yeah, so
I agree with you.
So we just, I don't know, because sometimes it's like you're having a panic attack when you watch your fuel gauge in your vehicle and it's going at a certain level.
Sure.
Then you're looking around to see where is the most convenient station where you can stop by and top up your tank. And in the meantime, these boys who are selling, these are urchins ordinarily who are selling petrol.
I am happy they didn't get a clip of me against the urchins about 1.5 weeks ago. Maybe I will not be pairing up with you guys because I almost lost it. It was just unacceptable that I would be in a queue stretching from here to about 1 kilometer back. Then you're letting in people straight in, right in front of the... Who is the half human being? Who are these people? I think we need to say no sometimes.
Claire, I know you are signaling that our director and producer urging us to wrap this up. But there are two issues, if you don't mind, I want to just quickly drop. We don't have to have a conversation around them. The first, of course, is to express our condolences to the Nasarawa State Governor, Engineer Abdullahi Sule, who lost his son last week. Engineer Sule, the governor of Nasarawa State, has been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions. He regularly obliges us with his presence and his candor in responding to our questions. The son was 36 years old, and when the vice president went to pay him a condolence visit, he did say that, well, the loss is a test of his faith, because just a couple of days earlier, he had also gone to condole with some families who lost their loved ones following the bombing incident in the Nasarawa Benue border. So we sympathize with the executive governor and pray that the Almighty will rest the soul of the departed and grant the family the fortitude to bear the loss.
Bear the loss.
Yeah, Claire, that's one point.
That's,
well thought. Yeah, the second one, this social media stuff has its benefits, also has its hazards. Yesterday, after our program, I was playing back to some of our colleagues. Well, Claire is trying to do that, but we can't have that. So I was playing back to some of I played back to some of our colleagues a TikTok clip that went viral of a student at the Federal Polytechnic Nekede in Imo State, who was excited that she had been through the rigors of academic work and was now ready to graduate from the Polytechnic. But she then claimed, of course, that it was through the help of God, and said something also obscene about how she had been through the system. Anybody who watches that video will be shocked. And I was quite pleased that late last night, I was reading some newspapers online, the Polytechnic registrar issued a statement that the views of that student did not represent the character of the institution, and that they were going to institute an investigation to get to the root of the matter. And this is the point to make. Look, if you are getting an academic qualification, whether university or polytechnic or college of education, it is two things. You have been found worthy, first is in character, and then in learning. So if the character is missing, no institution will, of course, award you a certificate, and that is a point to investigate. Secondly, I think the ICPC should also get into this. She's made a disclosure XYZ, so the school can do their investigation. So let the ICPC to see if there was abuse of office in the course of these students, all they say in the school, and if there was, then you prosecute the individual.
Exactly. As term has been cast. Don't ignore the reports.
You've had enough time.
Oh yes,
more time than
than normal.
Yes. So, sorry about that, producer. Let's take a short break now. It gets interesting when the time is well spent. Let's take a short break. All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, Tuesday's edition. And today we're looking at threats to train services in Nigeria. Of course, we know that in recent times, the train service being enjoyed by Nigerians as very, very comfortable alternative means of transportation has come under severe challenges. And of course, we've had attacks and we've had issues ranging from alleged sabotage and, of course, to the operational structure of some train services along some corridors. Of course, that threatens the service in major routes, especially the Abuja-Kaduna route and also the Ajaokuta-Itakpe-Warri route. So let's listen to the background reports put together by our correspondent. That should be Joseph Otseng, and it will be the prompt for our conversation.
Railways served as highly reliable means of conveying people and goods to different parts of Nigeria during the colonial era and early years of independence. Recently, the federal government has been making effort to revamp this transport system, with some routes now operational after periods of abandonment. The Abuja-Kaduna corridor, Lagos to Kano, Port Harcourt to Kano, through Kafanchan and Kaduna up to Gombe, are said to be operating. Today, Lagos State is said to run about 3 trains within. Gridlock around the seaports and over-dependency on the oil economy. The rail lines are enhancing the economic net of the transport sector. But just when Nigerians were again feeling the comfort of the rail transportation, attacks on railway facilities and services by terrorists and saboteurs are gradually dampening the positive spirit that greeted the services. 28 March 2022 saw the attack on the Abuja-Kaduna train service, with dozens of passengers abducted. Government had no choice but to shut down the route for 8 months. 10 months after, kidnappers besieged the Egwebe train station in Edo State, taking away some passengers. And few days after, Nigerians woke up to hear the derailment of Itakpe-Warri rail line and that of the Abuja-Kaduna route a few days again. These attacks, no doubt, have taken heavy toll on the nation's revenue generation and are eroding the confidence of many people in the rail transport system. Nigerians continue to ponder who are behind these attacks and their real intent. Why are authorities finding it difficult to protect railway facilities and services for the nation to reap desired benefits? These questions, guests on Good Morning Nigeria will try to analyze and share perspectives.
Thank you very much, Joseph Otseng, for that background report. We have in our studios here and also joining us via Zoom 4 guests, regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. First, let's welcome Engineer Fidet Ohiria, Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. Engineer Ohiria, glad to have you this morning. Okay. Also here with us in the studios is Mani Ochuboju, lawyer and transport consultant. Mani, glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
All right.
And we also have the pleasure of Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who's the security risk management expert. He's right here with us in the studio. Dr. Kabiru Adamu, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning.
And via Zoom, we have Roland Taguba. Mr. Taguba is the managing director, Bethlehem Rail, London, and chairman, Technical Advisory Committee on the Nigerian Railway Bill and National Transport Commission Bill that's in the House of the Representatives. We'd like to thank you for joining us all the way from the US. Good to see you, Mr. Ataguba.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm actually at the airport. I'm on my way out of town.
Oh, okay. That's great.
That's in Nigeria, by the way.
Okay, thank you, Ataguba. We hope that the connection will be stable and that you have a relatively noiseless environment to join into this conversation. But let's begin with the Managing Director of the Railway Corporation. You listened to our correspondent talk about the routes that are currently operational. But what is the situation as at this morning about the operational routes of the railway service in parts of the country or all around the country?
We say whether to say sorry or it's a painful thing that we entered the year in an ugly situation where the event that took place at the Tomikimi station, AKK Ngwebe, where 12 of the passengers and others were kidnapped. And we are also happy that after about 1 week or so, they got out from those who were holding them through the effort of the security families of the victims. And a few days later, we tried to face the problem headlong by not suspending the train, learning from the experience we had last year after the Abuja incidents. Suspending the train, and it took us a very long time to come back. Then after a few days, they caught the rail and the train ran into it. We are also fortunate there were no fatality, and the local government chairman of that area cooperated with us by quickly providing vehicle to move them out of that location. And after the Abuja incident, the train were fortified with both armed soldiers and police and civil defense. So to be confident to the people. Then just last Friday, we had this at Kubwa. I won't say we are at war, Nigerians are at war with their infrastructure, but what we have noticed is that you have people stepping out to deliberately harass the rail industry. And we have told ourselves we will not give up. We try as much as possible to do what we can do to ensure the Nigerians who are using the train and this entire system is placed in a way that is safe, so we have a safe train operation. What we are doing in Nigeria about train is not what other people are doing, where the operator has to be a security expert, has to provide start buying arms or bulletproof or APC to protect the track and protect the train. I don't think it's done all over. It's not nowhere such a thing is done. But as I said, in Itakbe, somebody tampered with the track. And also, before now, we have also cautioned our drivers to be more careful. We have placed camera on the train so that you can see 2 to 3 kilometers ahead of time. And it was, the Abuja Kaduna was preventable in the sense that it was on a straight line, the cameras were working. If the operators were also careful, if the staffs did their work, because since this incident, we have given instruction no trains should enter the station without piloting the driver. That means we have those we call pilot men, because we've discovered that they have vandalized the signaling, the lighting that will tell you the track is safe or not safe, and especially at Kubwa. And we left a standing instruction: no driver should cross the point till you have a person telling you that the track or the point is properly set. And from my preliminary investigation, the man to do that, to wave him on, was not there. And instead of the driver to also stop dead till that person's come to receive him, they just spoke on the radio we provided for them, and he thought all was well. So and we could see this because of this little technology we have added to our operations. Because the camera now have front eye to see in advance and at least 2 kilometer radius, so that if you see some unusual thing, and that monitor is supposed to be watched by what we call a co-driver and a stand driver, while the driver concentrates on driving, which means with what happened in Abuja, Kaduna, the person to do that was not attentive, or I don't want to say part of the because
so that was basically human error.
Yeah,
human error, miscalculation
in doing their work.
In doing their work.
Yeah. So, however, we have restored Abuja Kaduna this morning, and Itakbewori to the track has been relayed by the railway men, but we have to look at Itakbewori, the coaches and the locomotive, to ensure that they are safe to go, and that will take us about maybe 3 to 4 days again. In Abuja Kaduna, because we had 3 wrecks, one was attacked by the last attack in March, and we are still working on them, and this one is also affected. So we have deployed the only one train set now to commence operation, and we hope to run 2 return trips, 4 trains a day, starting from 7 and ending by I think 6 or thereabouts. So that is the present situation on our modernized train station. On the other side, the old track, we are not leaving it. The Lagos Mass Transit is running. We are running freight up to, I think, Oshobo. That is from the Lafarge Cement Factory. The vandalization is not only limited to this standard gauge, it's also on the narrow gauge. So we cannot run between Minna and Kaduna because of that. This incident that takes place between Abuja and Kaduna, it's the same thing that moves to Minna and Kaduna. We have a lot of banditry on that axis, and so that our staff cannot even stay in those stations. They have to move out because even the villagers moved out. So that is the situation as at today, and we are putting more stringent measures, not just on the security, but the way we operate. So like yesterday, we have to run the rail bus between Abuja and Kaduna twice with the security men to ensure that no further tampering was done. They are not just attacking the rail, they are also attacking power. The cable, we have our own power from Abuja to Kaduna. The Chinese, when they were doing it, engaged a security throughout that time, and we said, okay, we should also keep them on when we took over, and it seems that we are yet to understand what is really happening. The uprising, they are removing them. You fix one today, the second day they move to another place and remove them.
Has the NRC completely taken over the operation of the standard gauge rules from the Chinese?
For about 3 years. So we've been
so you are the ones, the NRC is one
operating.
Okay. I'm just curious. This might not be a question, but I'm just curious because the stories about derailment that I've heard in other countries, come with a lot of, casualties and all that. But both incidents we recorded here, we were very fortunate that we didn't have any of those casualties. Was it as a result of the expertise, or was there any form of technology? What really happened? Why were we so fortunate?
You see, as I said earlier, we have told our driver, put some speed. If that both trains that happen at a station, which means at a point, the people who are doing it know what they are doing. It's more dangerous or easy to have a train accident at what we call the point. That is the switch.
Okay.
Than have it on a straight line. They remove clips on a straight line and the train can still pass, not derailing, because it's on. I think they may have knowledge of how the train operates. The 2 incidents happened about entering the station where you have the switch, and so after Abuja Kaduna, they remove some portion of the track.
What are they doing with those things they remove?
I thought this was they steal and go and sell to the so-called foundry companies, but this once I don't think it's for that. I think it was intentionally for us to have that derailment. Yeah.
I remember, Claire, there was a time vandalism of rail lines was on, and we had the MD of Railways here as our guest to say, look, what was the attraction in vandalizing the rail tracks, the old ones and then the new ones? And he was talking then about the foundries, and there were reports about some persons who had been arrested, prosecuted, and even jailed or fined somewhere around Jos, and some Chinese were said to have also been involved in that particular incident. But MD, we'll come back to you shortly. Let's quickly take advantage of the continuing presence of Roland Ataguba, who is with us via Zoom. Ataguba, sorry, you have a silhouette effect. There isn't much light on your face, but if your audio is good, we'll take advantage of it. Listening, I hope you heard what the MD of Nigerian Railway Corporation said. And it's an obvious frustration to say that there's probably nowhere else in the world where you play the role of providing rail services. You also play the role of a security agency. You play the role of all kinds of multiple agencies. Plus what continues to happen in terms of the lingering threats to our rail services. How do you contextualize all of this?
Yes, you struck my sympathy, and it's one of the realities of doing business in Nigeria. You ask any of the telecom operators, they will tell you they have to go into the deal business and various other things had to do with the business. Essentially providing
Tagoba, we're having to return to the studios so that our engineers will give you the appropriate instructions on how to sort out the audio as well as the lighting on your face. We'll sort that one out presently. But let's come back to the studio before we get into the security element of it. It's the same question I popped to Atagoba. I would like to ask Mani Ochuboju, who is a lawyer and a transportation consultant. We've had you on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions discussing train services and the joy that was being expressed about the revitalization of our rail system. And listening to the catalogue of issues raised by the Managing Director of the Railway Corporation, what are your comments?
They are really depressing because we were expecting that after the initial cases of vandalization and outright terrorist attacks, there will be some improvement in the situation. Listening to the MD, we summarize it briefly into cases of trespass, theft, he mentioned theft, and terrorism. There's also aspects of human error, train defects, or management and signaling defects. All said and done, it is very, very disheartening that this is still happening. And it is a matter of national urgency because the railway system is one of the lifeblood of the national economy of the country. Anything happening to the railway system affects all of us. There's no exclusion. Directly or indirectly, we are all impoverished by these recurrent cases of derailment, incidents, accidents, detachment, or even collusion. The railway system has a right of way. It's a legal right of way. That right of way must be legally protected. And it means exclusion from intrusion, from outsiders coming to vandalize it, from outsiders coming to steal cables, coming to steal tracks, coming to get in the way that will cause disruptions and delay. it also requires us to also take a second look at the unique situation that the MD narrated, where he has to be the security chief, he has to provide new sorts of gadgets and ways of reorganizing their operations. Still on it, one of the things that gave me joy in what he said is that we now have sensors, camera sensors. And from the way he waved his hand, I think there are 3D sensors. Kabiru will tell us more about that. there are 3D sensors that can see about 2 kilometers ahead. I may wish to add to that. Let it be all the way on all the tracks all the time. We should have means of monitoring and detecting intrusion all the way, all the time. 2 kilometers is just braking distance. It's not good enough. No, but it is a thing to thank the MD for. It's a thing that we add as in Nigeria. Our standards are so low, so we celebrate the little one. You hear us use that phrase, "Oh God, they try, them try." Yeah, we are not voting them to try, but thank them anyway for the try. This one, you guys have tried. I don't like using that phrase, but it's a start. But I'm adding to it with due respect. Let us enhance the monitoring system, the detection system along the track all the time. The cameras, great. The monitoring shouldn't just be between the drivers and the co-driver. There should be a detachment of security experts. Again, I'm veering into Kabiru's area.
You observe the whole
any detection, any intrusion, any derailment, any movement.
Well, this is like you're in a war zone.
Oh, sadly, that is what it is. These are cases of outright terrorism. I mean, let's not miss nuance about it. And I'm delighted that Kabiru is here. These are cases of war. He even mentioned the word war, though in a muted and user-friendly way. But that's what it is.
It says that Nigerians appear to be at war with the infrastructure.
Yes. So we have to also try to find out who those persons are, besides the terrorists that we are familiar with, the usual ones. But then, this is where your committee on security should also bring outsiders to think outside the box. Suppose there are other economic interests attacking this, other than the bandits that we know, the unknown gunmen that we know, the terrorists that we know, or the Boko Haram that we know. Other than that, how about devious economic interests attacking this? Because just as blackouts, power failures give money and enrich some economic interests in Nigeria to make sure the power utilities don't work, that too is a case of primitive capitalism of some people who don't want the train perhaps to work. We have to look at that negative, primitive capitalist instinct of some sections of Nigeria. And we have to take it seriously because it affects all of us.
Yes, because, you know, prior to now, the road used to be, I mean, you know, the major, you know, means of transportation,
exactly.
of getting across, especially to the Kaduna axis.
Yeah.
You know, with the coming of the Abuja-Kaduna train now,
yeah.
almost a lot of, you know, what would I say, traffic, you know, is now diverted to that train corridor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, given explaining why people may want to derail, you know, the process, people
yeah.
may want to sabotage the process.
Yeah.
But again, when that axis came up, almost everybody, the communities along the axis, you know, celebrated it.
Yeah.
And we have records,
yeah.
we have video clips
yeah.
of traditional leaders, you know, the people themselves coming out to talk about the economic benefit of, you know, the different stations, the different
yeah.
stop stations and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what could have changed, because those who are doing these things are within. They didn't come from far. They are within the communities, within, you know, areas of where the accident happened. So what could have changed in their psyche?
It is difficult to say straight away. It will require critical analysis. But one of the things perhaps may call for corporate social responsibility to be enhanced, so that these communities where these rail lines pass will see the rail line as part of the community. It enriches them as well, directly or indirectly. So that when they hear that the MD, Nigerian Railway Corporation, is around, they maybe provide some water, they provide some maybe clinical services or something, just general corporate social responsibility in these various communities along the train routes. That may help to make them feel a part of the industry perhaps. That may help. What has changed could be simply increasing incidents and cases of insecurity in Nigeria. It could even be politicization of security in Nigeria. It could even be
poverty.
It could be poverty.
Governance.
It could be poverty. It could be governance. It could be cases of theft, which he pointed out, which again links to incidents of poverty. When there's poverty, of course, criminality and theft increases almost proportionally. So those are issues. I wish maybe we know the ready answer, but right here, off the cuff, I think maybe some corporate social responsibility will help.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Kabir Adamu, just speak. From any, just speak.
Okay, let me put it into context. I mean, that's in framing the cooperation between Nigeria and China in this regards, with regards to rail infrastructure, could this aspect have been woven into that framework?
Definitely. So in operational security, and I'm using my word carefully because this has to do with operations, all the big lenders, let's start from the World Bank to the African Development Bank, name them, they have a section where they insist that the borrower, in this instance, Nigeria, incorporates operational security as part. And the reason is obvious. This is a loan that we collected, and we have to pay that loan. Now, if the borrower is conscious that there are threats, and that's why I'm going to talk about what I will refer to as this threat spectrum in Nigeria. The borrower is interested. How do we manage that threat spectrum? Because from that threat spectrum, risk to the project itself will create consequences that may arise to or give rise to a situation where the borrower in this sense is unable to deliver on the project. So I'm not sure if we did that. If we didn't do that, then I'm hoping that this is something that especially the Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning and perhaps Finance should look at clearly and carefully whenever we collect such loans for whatever purposes, that we have a section for managing risk. Because this is what the world does nowadays. Like I said, even the borrower in this instance insists that you provide that component within our project. Now, talking about the threat spectrum, this is what the two other discussants have mentioned. The threat spectrum, in simple terms, can be divided into two: the external one and the internal one. And both discussants have actually mentioned the components of this. So the external one, as an example, would include the terrorist groups that are active, bandits, criminal gangs, communities, for instance, that are aggrieved for one reason or the other. I know there was a time when children were pelting the train when it was moving around, and then there were times when cattle would be left on the rail track, whether intentionally for the train to stop, or perhaps it was just an error by those who were moving with the cattle. So those are all elements of the external threat spectrum. But for the internal threat spectrum, that would be internal to the railway corporation. As an example, does the railway corporation vet its staff before they employ them? Even if they vet them, as an example, for those in critical sections of the department, as an example, do they do periodic vetting? Why am I saying this? All of this external...
What do you mean by periodic? What is vetting? What context of vetting?
To identify who they are, to identify red flags, quote and unquote, that could incentivize them to carry out all of these things that were mentioned.
Know your employees.
Okay. Simple. So do they do that? Because everything that we've mentioned externally can affect the organization internally.
Yeah.
So if we don't do that, I mean, poverty as an example, an employee of the railway corporation, if he's aggrieved for one reason or the other and somebody offers him 100,000, teach me the technology so that I know what part of the rail infrastructure I can vandalize that would create the kind of effect. All these are examples, and I don't want to trigger...
Because he gave us the hint to think along this line, because it's like they have knowledge of how this thing works.
So that we don't trigger a conspiracy theory, quote and unquote, I agree totally that one of the best things to do is to run an investigation, and I'm happy that the MD has actually hinted at that preliminary findings from his investigation, which tells me that an investigation is ongoing. So that's that with regards to the threat spectrum. The third component is actually how those threats are threats on their own. But what is important, especially from my field, is how do we mitigate the consequences of this threat, and that is where risk assessment or analysis comes in. How will those threats result into risk exposure for the railway corporation, from its operation to its personnel, as an example, to several other components of risk. Now, once you do that, you now mitigate those risks. Now, I can't sit here and say, as an example, this is the solution. But what we know is that there are 4 components to every security management plan or procedure. What are those components? The ability, first and foremost, to detect this threat and the risk. And he hinted at some of that. When you install a camera, what are you trying to do? You're trying to detect. And he gave us an instance that, the distance with which that camera can go. And a recommendation has also come to go longer than that. But where we don't have money, technology is good, but frankly, we have to be realistic. We do not have money. So one of the easiest things to do is to use human intelligence, quote and unquote. And that brings us to the discussion around the community. How do we incorporate the communities into the security arrangement, especially the intelligence? As an example, the local chiefs, I know effort has been done around that line. All of these persons who do this are not ghosts. How do we ensure that the communities within wherever the rail track passes, whenever they have information, they can pass it on to the security agencies, whether directly to the NRC, or because if I'm right, the railway line is a national critical infrastructure, which means it has to be protected. So that's number one, detect. The second one is the ability to deny. So you've detected the threat factor, whatever it is. Let's say it's gunmen who are coming to attack any component within the rail infrastructure. How do you deny them? As an example, you could deny them because he mentioned they have military and police deployment. Or it could just be physical barriers that you put, fences as an example, or name them. It could be even dogs. I know instances where by deploying dogs, they are able to deny. Dogs can play 2 roles too. They could also do that first one, detect. Because when they bark, you will be interested in finding out what happened. The third component is to delay. So that's where, as an example, and I know they have this, they've got armed security personnel, both on the train and then, of course, at their facilities and all that. So
I think we should just put Kabir on hold.
Let me mention the last element. There are 4. I've mentioned 3. The last one is response. Because if the threat element is determined, and let's say you have 10 police personnel on the train, and then he comes with 100 personnel, of course they will be able to subdue that 10. But you should have the capacity or capability to communicate so that there is reinforcement. And that reinforcement in modern security should be between 2 to 8 minutes. And I'm aware that they're working along that line. But the challenge is this, and he's noted it, they depend on other components of the government to supply the security that we're discussing. As an example, I know the police has a deployment that is responsible for security within NRC. I also know the DSS has a component, at least in Abuja here. I don't know at the national level how that arrangement is. So how do we bring all of this together? I've talked about the threat spectrum. I've also talked about risk assessment. How do we bring all of that together? And I think that is what I would suggest to not just the NRC, but the Ministry of Transport. We can't approach security in the manner that we're approaching it. It has to be holistic. And
Dr. Kabir, let's just pause. Kingsley, I know you.
Well, I mean, Kabir, that's why when I asked him the question, I said, Dr. Kabir, just speak. So, and he has been speaking. So we'll pause you, Dr. Kabir. Thanks a lot for your contribution. Now, we can return to Roland Ataguba, who is at the airport, and hopefully his audio will be much better this time. Dr. Ataguba, well, I want to go back to the original question I asked you to contextualize what the MD Railways had started off with. But I'm sure you have also listened to the other two guests in the studios. What is it that we are dealing with here, and how can we begin to get on top of it? Well, unfortunately, there's a freeze there on the transmission, the Zoom connection to Ataguba. I want to restate something that I said on Good Morning Nigeria years ago. Good Morning Nigeria has been on NTA network service since 2014, and money has triggered this for me to say it before, of course, I move into other aspects, Claire. And this, it was talking about devious economic interests. That could we speculate and say, for instance, there are devious economic interests that are probably sponsoring all of this to instigate whatever is happening and create a loss in public confidence, also disrupt the operations of the Nigerian railway services. What I said at the time was to recall an interview granted by Dr. Brigadier General Samuel Ogbemudia, who was military governor of the old Midwest. In the 1980s, General Ibrahim Babangida was military head of state. General Babangida appointed Ogbemudia as sole administrator of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. And the railways, of course, started to pick up. And in the interview that was published some years later, Dr. Ogbemudia did say that he received a visitation by some transporters who came to see him, and started by congratulating him on the good work he was doing with the railways. But they, according to him, they also drew his attention to the fact that they were also in the logistics business, and that they had taken financial facilities for their various operations. And that asked him if the railway continues to do well and users of their logistics services now abandon them and came to the railways, how would they then raise money? How would they then break even? How then would they repay the facilities that they had taken? Ogbemudia, who of course is now late, may so rest in peace, he was a guest on Good Morning Nigeria, not on this issue. We took him from our Benin Network Center some years ago, and he said he was dumbfounded. And thereafter, we all know what happened to our railways until recent years, where the government said, no, this is the way to go. So that is the economic sabotage I'm talking about. I had said this some years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, and I'm saying it again today on the basis of the point that Mani Ochuboju has raised. Now, I want to pause the MD of Railways and take on one of the many points that he raised. He says, look, Nigerians are at war with their infrastructure. Pipelines vandalized, rail track vandalized, manhole covers here in the Federal Capital Territory, actually in the city, manhole covers have removed and so on and so forth. Are we at the mercy of these vandals? Is it there something that can be done? You can't be bigger than the government, you can't be bigger than the law. Are we giving them a free rein? Let's begin with Mani and then we'll get back to Dr. Kabir.
Yeah, we have a situation of an avalanche of Luddites who have besieged the country, the length and breadth of the country. They are destroying things without any remorse as to the consequences. They destroy road infrastructure, they destroy pipeline infrastructure, they destroy rail line infrastructure, they destroy electricity infrastructure. So the utility networks, water infrastructure, so the utilities are grievously exposed to these dangers. The reasons for it, Claire hinted, it could be poverty, deepening economic crisis could be part of it. So when we begin to deal with issues of employment, issues of security, direct physical security, it may enhance the situation. When we begin to give people hope that they don't have to go and steal electric cables.
Are we the poorest nation in the world? Definitely not. Are we the poorest? I mean, Claire, are we the poorest nation on earth?
Yes, but we have the greatest number of poor people in the world.
Well, they say 133 million people.
For now.
But I'm just wondering, if that is the analogy, people are poor in the rural areas. Are they burning down their huts and then tearing down their farms? And elsewhere, in other countries where people are poor, are they also just destroying their public infrastructure?
Well, we are not the poorest nation, but we have a high concentration of poor people. And when poverty becomes aggravated, it dehumanizes the victims of poverty. And in that process, they become lumpen proletariat. By being lumpen, they destroy things that even will favor themselves. Precisely. You know, so that reversal of the psyche is something that happens with, in fact, the poverty of the psychology of the person itself. So that is an aspect we need to deal with. We should not just dismiss increasing and deepening poverty per se. So when you become a lumpen proletariat, they tell you go and burn down that building.
You don't ask why.
You don't ask why. For peanuts, you go and burn it down. Go and destroy that rail track. You go and do it. You don't give a damn. So it becomes even self-destructive too. So those are issues we need to look at. And the other issues that are related, to that.
These are also people that could be used for certain other reasons. They could also have been used for political issues.
Political violence, all sorts that can be used, and that therefore leads us to issues of sensitization. And that's partly why programs like this are necessary. So that there will be increasing sensitization of the people themselves. That these rail tracks you are destroying, it affects you too. Let them understand how it affects them. These pipelines that you're destroying, it affects you too. It affects your community. This, what do you call it, a bridge that you're destroying that passes by your community. These culverts that you're destroying, it affects you. These electric cables that you're destroying, it affects you. Our rail tracks are not even highly electrified. They are already removing the cables. So imagine a situation where we have increasing network connectivity with more cables. What's going to happen to those cables? So besides removing signal equipment that they are removing already, they are also removing cables. Cables that are also important to railway operations. So issues of sensitization needs to go with maybe corporate social responsibility, in improving the economic situation of the country. And I think, as I've heard Kabiru say in many of his security analysis, issues of security sometimes starts with even economic and food security. If we deal with that, it may improve those aspects of having Luddites and barbarians turning our systems upside down.
Well said, Mr. Mani, and I don't know, Kingsley.
Well, I would like Kabir to also weigh in on this aspect of Nigerians being at war with their infrastructure. Yes, it's been said that poverty could be a factor that is driving all of this, but the rest of us are not necessarily poor. The rest of us are not necessarily insane. So how do you balance that up? Because, as you said, yes, somebody who has poverty of psychology could be misled into committing arson. or vandalizing infrastructure and so on and so forth. But the rest of us who are sane, the rest of us who are not poor, the rest of us who recognize the value of these things, what is our responsibility? Are we also failing?
Exactly. There are so many aspects of this conversation. But let's go back to NSAS and the attack on warehouses that followed that riot. That, for me, would have been an eye-opener for anyone who has responsibility for security management in Nigeria. It showed clearly the level of public, I don't know, for lack of a better word, grievance, and the potential for the public to be incentivized towards certain actions that would be unfavorable even to themselves. We're in a pre-election month, as it were. Actually, this is the month that the elections, or tomorrow will be the month that the elections would be held. Why am I saying this? The last election, 34% of persons who were eligible to vote voted in that elections. Now, what it says is that the person who is governing us at the moment enjoyed a percentage, well, the highest percentage out of that 34. Now, if we are going to change this, then I'm hoping that on February 25th, that perhaps the number would be anything above 50%, so that that person who emerges from that election has the trust and the followership of the citizens, as it were. Why is that important? Because they will now see a reflection of their wishes when that person acts. This is very, very important. Sometimes we don't discuss this enough. But talking strictly security now, the answer, I would say, is simple. Follow the money. All of these persons, assuming, for instance, they're doing it for certain benefits, especially if it's financial, what if and how about if we block where they can sell these items? Then the incentive for them to actually carry out these activities is reduced significantly. Today, Kingsley, if you take me to a real light and say, oh yeah, vandalize it, where do I start?
Exactly. A good point to keep you on hold. We'll just take a short break. When we come back, I know the MD has quite a number of issues to respond to, and we'll also look at the other sides of security, how we can provide adequate security for our rail infrastructure. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and about time for us to take a short break. Welcome back. Again, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at the threats to rail infrastructure. And I just would like to say that I don't know if anyone, Kingsley, if you saw the story on the Newsline, on Sunday, it was all about those who remove manhole and how cars were plunging into those manhole, the kind of accident. So whatever you destroy, whatever you vandalize, it comes back to us, comes back to you. You understand? So, but
Claire,
yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interject. Kabir made a point, which is valid, to say if you do not disrupt the market for these products that are being vandalized, then we'll continue to be. I've always asked myself a question. There are all kinds of iron mongers around. Couldn't we also have security personnel as detectives being embedded amongst them to say, look, find out what the market, how the market operates, how they get their supplies and so on and so forth. And once you destabilize that, they will know that it's all over. And some, let's say even in the city, some of the underpasses that you see, place CCTV cameras or spy cams.
Okay. Yes, fair enough. I'm sure we'll respond to that. But there's a local parlance, we are all familiar with. It says the domestic rat. It is the domestic rat, that shows the wild rat the route to the house. So again, going back to vetting, your staff, those who drive the trains, vandalizing rail infrastructure it's not as easy as vandalizing any other infrastructure. It's just like vandalizing oil pipeline. You must have the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, you must have somebody who has the knowledge that will show you the road. So MD, it goes back to the quality, the people that you employ. Who are they? Do you really know them?
We are a government establishment, And when we employ, there is Federal Character Index you must adhere to. Apart from that, you train them. You see, everybody is hiding under this banditry. We allocate our track to a section. That is, you have a group to cover 6 kilometers. Every 6 kilometers, you have a set of a supervisor, what we call a gang head, and 6 linemen, the people that work on track. But since this advent of banditry, a fear of going even onto the track has scared them off, because you know most of the tracks are not within the town, and when something happens outside, ordinarily the people within that section would have been dealt with. But knowing that, for instance, you know there is serious banditry in a section and the staff has complained, you don't force them to risk their life. Even right now.
So what do you do?
Like we could now go with security men with a rail car or a rail bus. Like yesterday, once we were able to lay the track, we sent a rail bus to Kaduna 2 times between morning and evening to ensure that nothing has happened after the incident on Friday. So we left in the morning, came back, went again with security men. And it's not that we just employ police and say go free of charge. It's not like that. And those sections that you see delicate, you can't ask your staff to go there. So during that time, a lot of things happened. And you see, when you go on the track, in most cases they're isolated. And these people go there. Even when they try to bring them out, you catch them. I've repeated this here severally. And you have a big major issue now, like in the Benue, Nasarawa axis, that every day, even the civilian and the staff arrest vandals.
Are you reading out? Are you reading out help from the inside of the NRC?
No, we've dealt with a lot of people. But if you follow my analysis,
yes.
Ordinarily, if a pin is meeting in your section, we hold you responsible. But there are some sections that at least somebody says, I can't go there because of this. We are all human beings, you leave them. Even when the staff nurse come out, form a vigilante and arrest, they can't do anything. They hand over to either civil defense or the police. 2 days later, 3 days later, the vehicle is released. I ask them, say, they brought one magistrate. I said, no. You are a lawyer. What do you call it now? What? The exhibit. You have allowed the truck to go. Yeah. You've not. If I used to talk to my commissioner, if I'm a security person, when they come to, I will wait to see where they are taking it to. Not until you catch where they take it to, the business will not stop. And even when the one they caught in, they fined 200,000 to the company. It's from his pocket. They just paid the 200,000 and left. So not that you are not. They catch them every day, and the average railway person cannot do anything apart from handing them over
to security.
And even when the police they tried and go to court, I don't know what happened. Sometimes they find 20,000. But our law is felony to even cross the track. To cross the track, it's treated as trespass. Not just trespass, a great crime. To not only in Nigeria.
Serious crime.
Serious serious crime to come to the platform when you don't have ticket. You can go to up to 20 years, but nobody is implementing it. And he arrested the trailer today. He said, okay, police, 2-3 days you come back. The trailer is gone. So I don't have gun. And I'm a person, I don't go with siren. I just tell my I came that side because I believe I'm not going to hold this post for life. And I don't have that resources to start having security. I don't want to get used to it. I have to use my senses to ensure that. So the only thing we can do is to put them in writing and document them. So sometimes I bleed from my heart when I see all these things. You see, the ministry and us have tried to do something by providing at least those cameras. You see, those same cameras are in our operation center where we have engaged 3 people, 2 people sitting in front, 1 person sitting behind to ensure that don't say I went to toilet. They are in position to see the stone. I wanted to be discreet before. What happened in Abuja is that in between the switch, somebody placed a stone. It's electronically controlled. We added another level of safety. I said that when in this control dispatch room, you have operated that button and it shows that it has slapped. Somebody must still go because we know what we experience, especially at that end, the northern end of Cuba. Even after we wanted to start, the minister rode the train. It took us 30 minutes because the train has passed. In order to go back, somebody has gone to remove something. And because of that, we said before any train gets to that section, a staff has to be there. So after setting the point, that's what we call it, somebody must physically go and see. Because the electronic, because they vandalized it, cannot report. It's supposed to be a feedback system that will tell you it's closed or not closed. I said, but you have to go there, hold your flag. And if that, when we interviewed the boy, said he was there, the driver said he was not at the point, but close to the point. But from our recording, he was not even near there.
Okay,
so those are the
MD.
So it has to be, we have to have those people. And how do you have them? How do you, 4 trains a day, and you do that 4 times a day, you close for the day. Not 1 person, not at least 3
Sorry,
people.
MD, we're very pressed for time. I know that these are issues that we can dwell on, but I still want to stay with you because amongst the issues that have been raised will concern the efficiency of the train services and the fact that we have a loan to pay back.
Yeah.
And the fact that also, if you like, these are new beginnings for our rail system. You said earlier, on account of insecurity, Mina Kaduna is not running. And there are other issues along other services. And whenever your operations are disrupted, you don't run. At a point in time, we also be saying that, fuel can actually be transported by rail. Another hazardous material, so that all these issues of tankers and so on and so forth could be minimized. How do these threats impact, I know you've spoken to it, impact your overall, or let's say strategic outlook in revitalizing the railway system in Nigeria?
It's a serious drawback. Apart from, you see, for you to stop a train and to come back, there are a lot of things you have to do to come back at a cost. Now, because of insecurity, you have to improve on your out of the ordinary security you have to have for rail line. You have to have police not just on the train, at some strategic location where you suspect you could have these bandits. For them, you have what you call the so-called dry ration, because they're out of their distance. You talk about community engagement. We've also encouraged the community security, and you have to also pay them. In Abuja, Kaduna alone, people guiding the cable every month will pay 6 point something million. We have the community, like the hunters. Every month we pay them. And those extra police mobile, counter-terrorism, we also pay them, which make train operation very expensive. And don't forget the rise in diesel. We are using diesel. So it's no longer, when I joined the rail service, what we have is manual, St. John ambulance on the train. Just in case if there are things, not now that the people, you mentioned about poverty affecting people. I don't think people who are poor can buy those guns. I don't know the type of gun. Those who came to Igweben, I was two of our staff, and what they told me, he doesn't know gun, but they know those guns are brand new when he saw them, 10 of them.
Okay, we
see, so if they are poor, how do they acquire those guns?
The Gwemben case was quite different from the issue of vandalism. Yes, so
you see, no, even those, you see, it's not cheap to be a vandal, because how much do you pay trailer to carry your load? Because you have to pay more than another person that is carrying legal consignment. And sometimes they may be fake police wearing uniform, also leading them inside the vehicle, guiding. The most time police soldiers, I've said it here, they fight or argue among themselves.
Okay, so
so I don't think it's poverty, it's greed.
It's greed. Okay. Well, greed poverty begets greed. All right, Dr. Kabiru, let's quickly do. I remember, I think in the 80s, in the early 80s, the incident, the Murphy's incident, train collision. Of course, over 100 people died in that incident, and the story was that it was due to miscommunication. One left, much later than scheduled. Now, we were lucky that the incident in Cuba, there was no casualty. It was as a result of miscommunication. How does the NRC begin to look at it from a wider perspective, communication issues, so that we avoid a collision, in the case of Memphis?
As far as I'm concerned, and MD will correct me, we don't have that challenge here, because we've never encountered, that type of incident. Yeah. So ours is very different. When I mentioned the word threat spectrum, I was very conscious. And what I would recommend, if you allow me, and I hope I can give you an invoice at the end.
But it could happen. That's what I'm saying.
So my recommendation is
miscommunication is not addressed. The issue of
a collision.
If you don't mind, you see, right now we have smart radio. It now depends on the person. You deploy it or use them.
And
the driver, the stations. We don't depend on either signal or no signal. If I have problem with my own, I will hear what is happening. That comes also at a cost, which you pay annual subscription for. So the driver have that. That's why the driver just spoke to the man. Is the point set? He had that confidence to come because no, and he said yes. And instead of him waiting physically for the man to receive him. So we cannot we are past that stage now, technology, that except they deliberately want to collude. Because the driver can talk to the driver.
Okay.
And the driver can talk to the station.
My recommendation to the MD is to have a risk management department. I know you have a security department, you also have deployment from the police, but beyond that, modern day security speaks about risk management. So have a department that looks at this threat spectrum and would now make for each threat, you can have a risk register, and then you now manage those risks. Now what that would do for you is that because threat is not static, it's transient, it changes, and we can look ahead, and there are resources that frankly are free. I'm a fellow actually of the Risk Management Society of Nigeria. There's also ASIS International. We're happy to do this for you almost freely. So feel free, engage with these two associations that I've mentioned to support you in designing an infrastructure for risk management for the railway service.
Money, you still want to say something? 5 seconds.
The former minister budgeted 3.7 for security sensors, devices, and monitoring on the railway line. It was not approved. But we have lost more than 5 billion since 28th of March to now on disruptions. 5 billion. It is about time we revisit those issues that were swept aside under the last minister.
All right.
On sensors, monitoring, and security surveillance systems.
Manuel Chiboju, lawyer and transport consultant, thank you very much for your perspectives. Also, Dr. Kabiru Damo, security risk management expert. Also a pleasure to have you on our program. And earlier on we were joined by Roland Atagoba, although for a very short period because of bad network, we couldn't have him longer. But we do appreciate his contributions. And let me also appreciate the MD of Nigerian Railway Corporation, NRC, Fidet Ohiria. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Right, and that's it for our conversation. For Super Eagles Forward, Murphy is set to be unveiled by League One side OGC Nice in a deal worth 30 million euros. That's for sports.
Lorient have accepted OG Nice's offer for Super Eagles forward Terry Murphy. Nice paid 25 million euros plus 5 million euros in add-ons for the striker. Murphy, according to reports, is already having his medical ahead of the move. The 23-year-old will sign a 4.5-year contract upon the completion of his medical. It is the biggest outgoing transfer in the history of Lorient. Murphy joined the Le Melu from Belgium Pro League outfit KV Kortrijk for 8 million euros in October 2020. Murphy scored 12 goals in 20 league appearances for Lorient this season.
That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. As always, we appreciate your tuning in. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Remember, the campaign against rape and rapists is still on. Join us. From me and the rest of the production crew, have a good day.